Aloha and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books from their shelves, dust them off, and remind ourselves why it is we love them so. My name's Tom Galley, and joining me today we have Tony Pasculi.
Thanks, Tom.
Today we're going back to one of my favorites, Who Goes Here? This is something that I came across, I think, in high school.
Feels like a high school book.
It does. I have no idea how long it's been since I read this, but it sure was fun to revisit it.
Yeah. So does it, oh wait, do we say what it is yet?
Yeah. Who goes here? Oh, Bob Shaw. I didn't mention that part. That might be relevant to those of you going, wait, which? Yeah, Who Goes Here by Bob Shaw.
Yeah, okay. So what's, I mean, I always ask, why is this one of your favorite books? But yeah, we'll start with that. Why is this one of your favorite books?
This is just a fun read. The book is comic, and yet it has a plot which is a pretty intricate time travel plot, truth be told. And I say this about every book we have that makes me laugh. This reminds me of Douglas Adams, right? The writing reminds me of Douglas Adams, the way the creative use of language in unexpected ways to get a smile or a giggle out of the reader. And I think, the ending is a little bit of a letdown to me, but I think it maintains a pretty good level of energy and tension all the way throughout. And yeah, I have a good time reading this book.
It does. It was a surprise to me. This is my first time reading it, and we mentioned it feels like a high school book. It feels a little bit, it feels more like Harry Harrison to me, of Stainless Steel Rat fame.
Okay.
Specifically of Bill the Galactic Hero fame. I don't know if you've read that one.
I don't remember that, no.
You should read Bill the Galactic Hero sometime. I think it's very much in this genre, except that this, while it presents initially as this sort of just total goof-off science fiction comedy, is, as you say, it's quite a bit more serious than that. In fact, it's a pretty dark when it comes down to it. And that darkness is leavened by a lot of humor, as you say. But it's, going into it having no idea what to expect, I was really surprised by this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this book may well have the best opening chapter of any book I've read in terms of grabbing your attention and pulling you into the universe.
Interesting.
And I've highlighted the whole front chapter if that doesn't do us any good. But, there's a moment here. Our hero wakes up. It starts with him opening his eyes in a featureless office I think I've envisioned it like a dentist chair. And he suddenly realized he doesn't have any idea what he's doing there. Well, damn you. This is the nurse attendant talking, her face growing pale with anger. 30 seconds you give before you start asking your stupid bloody questions. 30 seconds. How much personal satisfaction and fulfillment is a girl expected to cram into 30 seconds? This is the highlight of her day is helping people, and he's ruined it. He doesn't know what he's ruined. He doesn't know how he's ruined it, but clearly he has ruined it. And it just keeps going from there. I love it.
Yeah, so because it starts off as a little bit funny, it's a funny book, and it starts off with him having his memory wiped in order to join the Space Legion. This is one of the things you do. You join the Space Legion, you have your memory wiped, and you get to have your memory wiped of all the crimes you committed, which drove you to join the Space Legion in the first place.
Yep.
And this really felt like a device. It's like, haha, that's funny. And there's a couple of guys who want to get out of the Space Legion by remembering their crimes so that they no longer have to be signed up. They can just they can have their debt to society is paid because they joined the Space Legion, but because the Space Legion doesn't hold up their end of the bargain of wiping their memory, then they can now leave.
Yep.
That doesn't work out well for them.
No, it doesn't. The Space Legion has anticipated this.
But it feels very much like a device. It's just like, oh, this is humor, this is comedy. Then we're going to drop this and never revisit it. But it turns out this is a kind of one of the central drivers of the plot for the rest of the book.
Right. Is
this memory wipe. And that was a surprise and a delight to me. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, our hero, our protagonist, maybe we shouldn't call him a hero.
We should not.
Our protagonist, whatever it is he's done, is so horrific that it has erased his entire memory.
Yes.
He knows his name, he can speak the language, and that's literally about it. He has no functional knowledge of the world or how it works.
As it turns out, he doesn't even know his name.
That's actually one of the better jokes, I think, in the book, and it's so well set up.
It is. And that, again, that was a delight because his name is Warren Peace. And you're just like, oh, I read that and my eyes rolled. And I'm just like, oh, come on. And then when you get to the reveal, it's like, oh, okay, worth it.
Yeah,
worth it.
totally
Absolutely worth
and
it.
it absolutely works. It's not just a gimmick. It was, well thought out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just, it manages to weave together, like you say, the world in which it's set is a dark world. The plot is surprisingly convoluted and well thought out, and yet it still manages to be a fun read all the way through.
Yeah. I highlighted one of my favorite lines here. You compared him to Douglas Adams. To me, he doesn't have quite the level of inventiveness and consistency of Douglas Adams, but I did highlight this line, which I love. They're talking about a restaurant, and he says, yeah, the local shrimps are so full of mercury, they get taller on a hot day. Love that.
Yep.
And there's some other fun stuff, too. There's I've never seen this before in science fiction. They've got a ship transport that, rather than using wormholes or black holes or any kind of FTL drive, they just have a matter transmitter at each end of the ship. The ship is 200 meters long, and it zaps itself from one end of the ship to the other. So it goes by 200 meters at a time, but very quickly. So just bip, 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 bip.
That's just so beautiful. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
And I've highlighted, he could not recollect ever having seen a spaceship, but he had no difficulty in visualizing the tall, graceful ships with prows like gleaming spires reaching toward the heavens. So they get shepherded into what he thinks is a waiting area, a warehouse, waiting for the spaceship to come. And then he gets bored after a couple of hours and tries to leave, only to get knocked down by his teammates and have the nature of actual spaceflight explained to him.
Yes. Yeah. So that the consequence of the transportation mechanism is the way spaceships are just big boxes.
Yep, 200-meter long warehouses with a transmitter on the back and a receiver on the front. Yeah, which is nonsensical, and yet, hey, they went with it. They stuck with it.
All right. So you said you haven't read this since high school?
I might have read it in early college, but I'm quite sure it's been decades since I read it.
So how does it held up for you? Clearly, by your tone, it held up very well.
And I think this might be the same sort of thing that Well of Souls was for you, in that I just have such fond memories of it, and it's such a fun read that I don't see problems I might have seen if I had picked it up later in life. But yeah, I feel like it held up.
That's definitely a thing. So I haven't read this book before. Apparently, it's a trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Have you read the rest of the trilogy?
I don't remember it being a trilogy, so I don't know that I've read the other two books, and I'm not sure that I want to try it. I don't know where you would go from there, but maybe I should just have faith in Bob Shaw and give it a shot.
Yeah, because you'd be approaching the sequels with jaded eyes, not high school eyes. You'd be apprehending them for the first time, going,
Yeah, so I'm concerned that might take some of the luster off the first book for me.
I have never read this book before, but I've read some other Bob Shaw. So I was surprised that there was a Bob Shaw book that I hadn't heard. I haven't even heard of this book, but he wrote a series called The Wooden Spaceships. We talked about this, about two planets that are close enough that they share an atmosphere, and so you can travel from one to the other, basically on giant rockets, which is kind of amazing. And then he wrote a book about a Dyson sphere called Orbitsville, which makes Ringworld look small, which is also fun. Yeah, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of, again, I've just basically gone through and highlighted stuff that made me laugh more than anything. But the deal with time travel here, he gets introduced to the fact that time travel is a reality in, of all places, a restaurant, where they have a single-acting introverter, an aquarium that's enclosed in a machine that sends something forward in time, and they use it to grow lobsters to the customer's taste. Yeah. He had described his portable time machine as a single-acting introverter, which implied the existence of other types, among which might be a double-acting extroverter, whatever that was.
Yes.
That was a lovely setup for what's to come next, when Warren himself finds himself thrown backwards in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the time travel was also a surprise in this plot, because you're going through thinking it's one kind of book, and then it turns into something completely different once you enter the time travel. And that plays into the darkness and the memory loss and the weird name. and all of that. So that was really fun, actually, the way that played out. But yeah.
Yeah. And that, the fact that some mad scientist had built a double-acting extroverter into the stall of a woman's restroom it was a raincoat factory, wasn't it?
I don't
Something
remember.
silly like that. Yeah. And it's just so much fun. I mean, that level of technology and that sort of an evil villain plot, and it's just casually lying around. This device is just casually lying around in what in Warren's time was an abandoned building.
Yes.
So he accidentally falls into it twice.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I'm looking at a note I have here on my Kindle, which is just the word blancmange. And I don't know how familiar you are with Monty Python. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite Monty Python sketches of all time is the blancmange who invade Earth to win Wimbledon.
Yep.
And he has a reference here to a 2 meters long, 2 meters tall amorous blancmange. And I was really wondering, because he wrote this book in 1977, which is around the time that Python was operating, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if either one of them was inspired by the other.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of single words highlighted in the first couple of pages, obtruded.
Obtruded.
And that was, I mean, in context, it was really obvious what it meant. A stray thought obtruded, right?
Yeah.
So, like intruded or, popped up or whatever. But yeah, just not a word I remember having come across before. Clearly I have, because I've read this book a few times before. Yeah. But yeah, obtruded. I'm going to try and work that into my short list of daily words.
Something I notice as we go through books for the podcast is that we talk about books that I've read, half a dozen times sometimes, and because I'm reading them with an eye to talking about them, I pay more attention to details than I would otherwise, and stuff that I would normally sort of zip right past. I go, let me make a note of that because it's interesting, and I discover things that I've never noticed before, including, as you say, words that I just kind of would have close enough from context, and I go, no, actually, I want to look that up now. That happens all the time.
Yep.
All right, I have one other thought on this book, which is the throw rugs. The throw rugs. So they're these. They're the mysterious creatures that drop on people out of trees like leopards, but they're shaped like blankets and they land on people's heads. If you have a throw rug on you, you're considered to be doomed, and they try to kill you and the rug before you can whatever.
Put you out of your misery before,
and
you're consumed alive by this thing.
Maybe it's because I read Build a Galactic Hero, where there's a whole setup just like that, where there's cute aliens fighting evil-looking aliens, and it turns out the evil-looking aliens are the good guys, and the cute aliens are the bad guys. But I was immediately suspicious of this policy of destroying anyone who gets a throw rug falling on them. And then, of course, it does turn out to be the case that the throw rugs are forming a symbiotic partnership with the people that they fall on and turning them into basically living gods. And that there's a large suspension of disbelief that has to happen at this point, because at some point humanity encountered the throw rugs for the first time, mm-hmm. but there had not been any Oscars. The first appearance of the Oscars is because War and Peace failed to shoot his two teammates mm-hmm. who were taken by the throw rugs. Yeah.
So up until that moment in the entire history of human colonization of that planet, nobody had wandered into that forest alone and had a throw rug drop on themselves.
That's a good point.
Also, what did the throw rugs do before human beings settled on the planet? Are there godlike animals roaming the planet?
That's a good point, too. There should be.
There's the throw rugs kind of, if you want to talk about a gimmick, that's the gimmick that gets inserted here, right? Yeah. Because there's no history, there's no positioning for them. They become a threat only when humans arrive to be threatened by them. What were they doing the day before?
It's definitely one of those. But I mean, I don't know. I blip past that because it's a comic science fiction novel. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good point. You know, what is their ecology? What do they throw themselves onto when human beings aren't around? And then what do they do with them? Do they transform them? Do they just consume them because they're waiting for an intelligent thing? Maybe.
Maybe.
It's like Alien. You know, you have this parasite that's uniquely designed to prey on human beings.
Well, we flex that in later Alien movies, right? We get it
Badly.
yes, badly, admittedly, but we do get a dog alien hybrid, so
Yeah.
there's that. But yeah, but you got to have them, right?
Yeah. So anyway, just a note because of the way, and I think it's, you know, the way that comic science fiction was going in the 70s, this couldn't have been straightforward. It had to be, and that's the obvious twist. Yeah. So, but it was still fun.
Yeah, but I mean, of all the ridiculous things in the book, it is the least set up ridiculous thing.
Yes, that's fair. Well, no, I think it's well set up. Actually, the setup is great. It's just not well justified when you start to think about the implications. Yeah. So,
Which clearly is not what we're supposed to be doing.
yeah.
Here, decades later.
Yeah. So you feel no desire to go and dive into book 2 now of War and Peace
You
trilogy.
know what? I actually, I feel some trepidation, but I would have actually gone ahead and done it, except I was running a little bit late on time, and I had to get through our next book for the podcast. So I'm currently involved in finishing off that trilogy, but then I'll probably will go back and pick up book 2 and book 3 of Who Goes Here.
That's right. That's a trilogy too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next time.
Very shortly, yeah. In about 2 weeks, we'll talk about that one. But yeah, I'm happy. I mean, this book held up for me. And again, it's just a fun read.
Yeah.
Without being fluffy.
It's a little fluffy for me, but it was definitely fun. And it was considerably less fluffy than I expected it to or could have been, given its premise. Yeah. I think it plays out some of the implications of the premise quite well. The introduction of time travel complicates everything, but it's there for a reason.
Yep.
And yeah, it's overall satisfying. Yeah. So okay. Next question. Have you read any other Bob Shaw, or is this your only Bob Shaw?
You know, I flipped through his list of books at the back, and none of them jumped out at me.
Okay, so you haven't read it. Are you tempted to read any more Bob Shaw based on this?
I am.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean, like I said, very enjoyable read. So
Well, then I recommend Wooden Spaceships.
Wooden Spaceships, I will add that to the list.
Ignore the cover, which has a classic pirate sailing ship, you know, cruising through the stars. Has nothing to do with the book. Someone read the title and said, "Yeah, okay, I got your cover illustration." Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, the books that we really enjoy, or I really enjoy, it seems like these go too quickly. But I don't know.
It happens sometimes.
I get in the middle of this thing and I forget to take notes. I forget to highlight because I'm just having a fun time reading it. Unlike something like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where I'm working so hard to get through it, it's like stopping to take notes is a welcome break from
Let me make a note of this so I can complain bitterly about it. Yes.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, okay, this is a tangent, but speaking of which, I think Disney just announced, or maybe Amazon just announced a series inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Again?
Yeah.
Didn't they do that in the 70s?
Doing it again.
Oh,
Doing it
well,
again. It's
maybe
called
if we throw
Nemo.
$1 billion at
And
it.
it's pretty loosely inspired. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot more action than the book.
Well, so loosely inspired. Nothing happened in the book.
Yeah, it would have to be loose. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, what do you think of this Bob Shaw?
I liked it. It felt a little light, but certainly heftier than I imagined it would be from the opening. Yeah. I'm a sucker for amnesia books. You know, I mean, that's Nine Princes in Amber starts with the amnesiac hero. Yeah. Most of the Morrowind series starts with a amnesiac hero. They're games, not books, but it's a really great trope where you have a parallel for you, the reader, who's trying to understand the world,
right?
And your protagonist is also trying to understand the world. That's really, really fun.
Yeah, the writer can reveal things without having to be sneaky or cryptic about it.
Yes. Yeah.
And the addition of it being a voluntary amnesia story.
Yeah, which is
uncommon.
Which is great. Yeah, I think. Who does that? Philip K. Dick, in a short story, which got turned into a movie, Payday.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what have we got up next?
Next, we've got another Niven Purnell collaboration. Woo-hoo! Actually, Niven, Purnell, and Barnes. It's The Legacy of Heorot, I think.
I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it either, but yeah, I remember that one from way back.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.